It is now my great pleasure to introduce our guest today, State Representative Manny Rutinel, one of the 3 Democrats vying for the primary nomination to take on our 8th favorite member of Congress from Colorado this November. Manny grew up as the son of a single immigrant mom who worked hard to give Manny and his brother a better life. His family lived paycheck to paycheck, relying on food stamps and Medicare to make ends meet. He worked his way through school, sleeping on friends' couches, substitute teaching, and even selling his own plasma to help his family before earning a law degree from Yale. Rutinel also worked as an economist for the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, an attorney, and a first responder in Puerto Rico after Hurricane Maria. Manny was elected to fill a vacancy in the Colorado House of Representatives in October 2023 and has since gone on to co-sponsor over 400 bills. Now he's running against our 8th favorite member of Congress from Colorado and as our first guest in a 3-part series to interview every Democrat running for the 8th District. Manny Rutinel, welcome to the Get More Smarter podcast.
Thanks so much for having me, y'all. Really appreciate it.
Well, we know you listen to the show, and we're really glad to have you here. So before we get into the questions, just tell us a little bit about yourself and your time in the state legislature before we get on to your campaign for the congressional district in the 8th.
Yeah. Well, yeah, first off, long-time listener, first-time caller, excited to be here with y'all. You're usually, talking at like 2 times speed into my ears, so this is a much better pace for me.
You can hear Ian at 2 times speed?
Yeah.
That just sounds like a chipmunk.
Exactly. Y'all still sound good. Yeah, I mean, Ian, you gave a great overview of my life story, but yeah, I mean, the basics of it is that I'm the son of a single mom who immigrated to America in search of that American dream. And so this run for Congress is really personal for me. I was 10 years old when I was filling out food stamp and Medicaid applications. We lost our home during the Great Recession, and having to hear your mom cry like that is not something that anybody in the richest nation in the world should have to listen to. And eventually, we were able to make ends meet because of programs like Medicaid and food stamps, and we were working nonstop. I was working at McDonald's. I was selling my blood at a plasma center over 100 times to the point where I have a scar on my arm. And I went to college, and I spent my first semester sleeping on my friends' floors and couches. And I became an economist with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, where I took an oath to defend the Constitution against enemies both foreign and domestic. Then I started applying for law schools, and my mom doesn't always like this part of the story, but I'll tell y'all anyways. I started applying for law school, and I called my mom up, and I said, Mommy, I just got into Yale. And she goes, "You just got into jail?" That's the sort of background I come from. That's the sort of background of so many of the folks across the 8th Congressional District. It's a district drawn for Latino representation. It's 40% Latino. It's working class folks that are trying to make ends meet, but they've got a member of Congress and a president right now that thinks that being macho and tough means putting down our most vulnerable neighbors, when we all know that real leadership is about lifting everyone up. And so that's the kind of leadership that I want to bring to Congress, and it's the kind of leadership that I brought throughout my entire career.
One question we like to ask all our guests, particularly those running for office as Democrats, we don't have a lot of Republican guests on the show. Why are you a Democrat?
I mean, I think it comes down to my values around, I'll give you my tagline that I like to come back to over and over again. And it's this idea that poverty is a policy choice. And I can prove it to you because in my first legislative session as a Colorado state legislator, I introduced a bill to expand the earned income tax credit, which is a tax credit that gives money directly to working families. And between that bill and another bill called the Family Affordability Tax Credit that I co-sponsored that year, we cut childhood poverty nearly in half overnight in Colorado with the signing of that bill. And that's the sort of values that I think Democrats believe in and understand, that we can just make sure that our economic system works for all of us instead of the 1%. That's what makes me a Democrat.
So you've been in the House of Representatives for a little over 2 years now after filling a vacancy in 2023. What made you decide to run for Congress in the 2026 election?
Yeah, well, I started getting a lot of calls once the Trump administration was elected and we lost this seat to Gabe Evans. And I was getting all these calls from community members asking me to step up, asking me to use my skills, my bilingual abilities, my energy, my work ethic, my experience as a state legislator, and my values to bring this seat back. Like I mentioned, this is a Latino seat. It was drawn in large part for Latino representation. And we need folks who have not just the experience and the values, but can appropriately speak to our swing voters, which are increasingly Latinos. Need folks who can reach out to young people, which unfortunately the Democratic Party is losing. We need folks who are able to bring authentic values. Sometimes you talk to politicians and they talk about the affordability crisis like they read it in some white paper or in some memo. I lived it. And I think folks recognize that authenticity when I'm speaking to them, when I'm legislating. And I kept getting those calls. And eventually I realized that this fight was personal and that I needed to step up and fight back against a pretty horrific Trump administration.
So we talk a lot on this show about sitting lawmakers and whether or not they should be resigning or staying in office if they're seeking a higher office, right? One of your Democratic opponents, former state rep Shannon Byrd, did resign her seat in late 2025 and basically said, I'm going to do this to campaign full time. We don't actually know if there's a right or wrong answer here. Like Brittany stayed in office the whole time when she ran for Congress, right? So like we don't have an opinion. But what made you decide to stay in the legislature while running for this super duper competitive seat?
Yeah, well, this is an opportunity for me to fight back against the Trump administration. It's an opportunity for me to show folks what I believe in, what I stand for, and how I'm able to fight. I'll give you an example of that. Right now, I'm running a bill to fight back against the Trump administration's gutting of our worker safety. And they're doing that by rolling back OSHA. And what we're doing here in Colorado is I'm introducing and proposing and getting the support of from all sorts of labor unions to move forward with the Worker Safety Act so that workers, labor unions, and the Attorney General has the ability to go after employers that are putting workers at risk. Being in the state legislature gives me that opportunity. And also, frankly, this is the most competitive seat in the country. We need someone who's able to legislate and campaign. That is the job. I mean, what do we expect? That somebody, if my primary opponent wins the congressional race, is she going to drop out the next day so that she can run for it again?
Fair enough.
I don't quite understand that. And so this is an opportunity for me to fight back against the Trump administration, fight for affordability, which we're doing, and also demonstrate that I'm capable of legislating and campaigning at the same time, which is a necessity in the most competitive district in the country.
So it's a relatively crowded field for the nomination. You're running against, like we said, former state rep Shannon Byrd, military veteran Evan Munsing, both of whom we're going to have on the show over the next couple weeks as well. So why should CD8 Democratic primary voters choose you as the nominee instead of one of your primary opponents?
Look, we have built an immense amount of momentum for this campaign. You might have seen that we just recently crossed over $3 million into the campaign from 55,000 individual donors. We have over 1,000 volunteers. We've gotten over 50 million views on social media, 6 million likes. We've gotten the endorsement of over about 100 elected officials, including members of Congress and prominent organizations. We are building not just an incredible campaign, but an entire movement of grassroots supporter. All that support, by the way, was done with $0 coming from corporate PACs. I think when folks see me, they hear me, they realize, and they've come up to me and they've said such, but they've told me, Manny, you must be Donald Trump's and Gabe Evans's worst nightmare. And I think they're saying that because my personal story makes this a personal fight. When I talk about the issues of affordability, I'm talking about it from a personal standpoint. When I talk about how we need to protect our immigrant neighbors, I'm talking about it because my mom is an immigrant. So many of my family members right now are scared. This is a personal fight for me. When I've seen the shooting of American citizens in places that are on our own territory, it breaks my heart. And so this is a personal fight for me. It's why in the legislature, I've co-sponsored bills to fight back against the Trump administration, including a bill to protect our immigrant neighbors from ICE brutality. And my Democratic primary opponent, Shannon Byrd, was the only Democrat to vote against that bill. This is a bill that would prevent these mass federal agents from going into our schools, hospitals, and churches. We need people in this race who have a personal stake in these issues, who know the issues firsthand and have an authentic message to bring, and the integrity to fight back against what are some really powerful forces in our government and our corporate ecosystem. And that's who I'll be.
We need to ask you about this recent candidate forum in Thornton, sponsored by Working Families Party and Color Latina. Shannon Bird was not in attendance. The moderator, Tim Hernandez, came up with this idea to mock her with a piñata of her likeness. You even joked about it, saying, quote, "I'm the only Democrat in this race that has voted to protect immigrants from ICE's brutality time and time again, and I'll let my piñata opponent say her piece and why she decided to vote against those protections," unquote. Given the obvious symbolism of a piñata, which everyone knows is intended to be smashed open with a stick, why is this okay?
Well, look, I showed up to a forum hosted by a Latina organization in our district to talk about ICE brutality, which is one of the most pressing issues families here are dealing with right now, especially in our district, which is the most Latino in the state. And Shannon Bird was the only Democrat to vote against a bill I co sponsored to keep ICE out of our schools, hospitals, and churches. The people in that room wanted to know why. I think they deserve an answer, and I think they're tired of elected officials who won't show up and give one.
I don't necessarily disagree with the idea of wanting an answer, but the piñata, the effigy, why is that something that Democrats should be supporting in a primary against another Democrat?
Look, I'm not going to get into litigating what a Latino organization does at their
Well,
own.
but you talked about it. You brought it up too in your comments.
Yeah, like I said, I'm not here to litigate what a Latino organization looking to express their Latino culture are doing at their own event. What I will tell you is that people in that room are scared. They're scared ICE is going to show up at their kids' schools. They're scared to go to the hospital. And Shannon Bird voted against a bill that would have protected them. That's what I think the people in our district want to be talking about.
This speaks to a broader issue, something that we've talked about a lot on the show, that over the last 10, 15 years, one of the things that Republicans have done in Colorado that has made them almost unelectable on a statewide level is this constant infighting and battling each other. The Democratic Party is struggling with its own sort of tension between leftists, progressives, and moderates, centrists. I mean, these are all labels, but it gives us a general idea of what we're talking about here. How do we avoid this kind of infighting that sunk the Republican Party in Colorado?
Yeah, I mean, when I talk to voters, Democrats, independents, and even Republicans, what they want most right now is a fighter who can defeat Gabe Evans and stand up to Donald Trump and who can make life more affordable. That's the focus of our campaign. That's who I've been in Colorado, and it's who I will be in Congress. In the Colorado State House, for instance, I've passed over a dozen bills as the main sponsor and over 400 as a co-sponsor, many with bipartisan support, including the bill on ICE brutality, a bill to expand earned income tax credit, which I mentioned before. I even cut regulations to make it easier to run a small food truck business in Colorado. That's the kind of fight, and those are the kind of results, not the labels, not the infighting that voters across the political spectrum tell me they want to see from the representatives. And that is who I am and who I will be in Congress.
Do you believe that there's such a thing as a quote unquote good Democrat, or do we have room for diversity of opinions still in the Democratic Party?
I think that, if you agree with me on 100% of the things, there may be something wrong with both of us because we'll agree on everything, of course. But, we can't compromise on certain values in the Democratic Party. And, I sometimes wish that members would wear sort of like a NASCAR jacket with all the corporations and organizations that support them. Because I think what we have, though, is an issue where people don't feel like they're being represented. People feel like members of both parties may be representing corporations or the billionaires. And I think that what we need to do as a Democratic Party is make sure that we are representing working people. And that's what I've done in the Colorado State House and what I'll continue to do in Congress.
There's some sense that, in these hyper competitive districts, like you said, the 8th is the most competitive district in the country. It's certainly in the top 5 if it isn't the number one, right? But there's a sense among some folks that think that competitive primaries, like the one that you're in, actually hurt us and hurt the eventual nominee's ability to take on someone like Gabe Evans in the general. What do you think about that?
Well, I think, if we're focused on making sure that we're shining a light on the horrors of the Trump administration and Gabe Evans, that could be a really useful tool to have many folks with many different perspectives taking on the Trump administration and Gabe Evans all at once. Of course, we need to make sure that we as a Democratic Party put forward someone who's got what it takes, the energy, the work ethic, uh, the uh, the values of the district, so that we can take back this seat. And I think the primary voters in this district are going to do a great job at making sure that we select someone who can put up a fight against the Trump administration.
So let's say that you win the primary and are the nominee against Gabe Evans for the November election. What's the case that you prosecute against Evans? And how will you run a campaign to make that case to voters in one of the most competitive elections in the country and probably the most interesting election in the state of Colorado that goes all the way to November this year?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think Gabe Evans has done himself no favors with his voting record. He
Right.
has, when Trump says jump, Gabe Evans says, how high, boss?
Mhm.
He has time and time again decided to gut our healthcare. When
Mhm.
folks come up to me at these in-person town halls that Gabe Evans refuses to go to because he's too scared of his own constituents, they tell me, you know what, Manny, in the last election, I voted for Donald Trump and Gabe Evans, but in this election, I'll be voting for you because I see you everywhere, you listen, and I know that your values are my values. They feel like they've been lied to.
Mm.
Donald Trump and Gabe Evans said they were going to go after healthcare costs, and instead they have gutted Medicaid and the Affordable Care Act. In my district, a family of 4 will have their health insurance go from $500 a month to $2,000 a month. Imagine trying to find $1,500 more a month just to be able to get the medical procedures that you
Yeah.
desperately need. They said they were going to go after grocery costs, and instead they have gutted food assistance. You might have seen
Mhm.
the Trump administration in their State of the Union talk about how they lifted millions of people off of food assistance.
Yeah, they help everybody.
That is doublespeak. It's the most Orwellian doublespeak. For we just removed people off of food assistance. We
Yeah.
just took food out of the mouths of children. They said they were going to bring back jobs, and instead they're starting trade wars with the entire world, destabilizing our entire economy. And I'm an economist by training, but it doesn't take an economist to know that these tariffs are chaotic and corrupt. So we need a representative who's able to make that case from an authentic standpoint, to have the skills, the experience, and the work ethic to be able to make that case against Gabe Evans. And I know that I'll be the one.
We talk a lot about some of the distinctions between someone like Gabe Evans and Jeff Hurd in the 3rd Congressional District, that Jeff Hurd is doing the things in a much safer Republican district that we would have thought Gabe Evans would do. Are you surprised he isn't trying to separate himself a little bit from Trump?
Look, I worked right next to Gabe Evans in the state house. I literally sat next to him because that's how our seats were assigned when we were both in the state
I
legislature.
didn't realize that.
Yeah. And he is someone who is very ideological. It's as simple as that. There's
So you think he just believes this?
yeah, I think it's a matter of him thinking that Trump and Mike Johnson and his billionaire buddies are going to rescue him, and that he's got some duty, which is completely misguided, to essentially help the billionaire classes with these really unfair tax breaks to these billionaires for them to, I don't know, get their 4th yacht. I think it's misguided, and it is not representative of this district, and the people of the district feel lied to.
You mentioned healthcare as something that you hear a lot from your constituents and folks in the district when you go campaigning. Is that the main issue you hear about regarding Gabe? And what are some others that you're hearing from voters as you campaign through the district?
Yeah, I mean, healthcare is a huge one. I mean, they're literally taking healthcare away from people. People won't be able to go to the doctor, and as a result, they'll die. There are literal deaths that will happen as a result of the gutting of Medicaid and the Affordable Care Act. And so this is a really, really important issue for folks. And it hurts their pocketbooks. And it hurts all of our pocketbooks because folks who don't make their way to the doctor end up making their way to the emergency room. And when they can't pay for that bill, we all bear the cost. So all of our health insurance rates are going to go up. Our healthcare costs are going to go up. People will die. It is terrible. Another thing that I'm hearing from voters across the political spectrum is that they feel like there has been horrific overreach by Trump's ICE agents.
Yeah.
They are terrified that these masked agents are going around in unmarked cars without judicial warrants, without body cameras, and taking people because they have accents like my mom's. My mom's got an accent. She is the most loving, wonderful, kind person in the world, but she's got an accent. And the fact of the matter is that these masked federal agents are trying to round up people like my mom. And that's infuriating. And it is a tragedy, and it is an overstep that is unconstitutional, unlawful, corrupt, and cruel. And those are some of the issues that I'm hearing when I talk to voters.
Can I ask you something kind of personal?
Yeah.
Do you get scared?
You know, I've been in a position where I had to consider bringing my passport to more than just the airport.
Mm.
Technically, English is actually my second language. You probably wouldn't know it. But whenever I mess up in English, I go, "Hey, Dave, don't rag on me."
Second language, yeah.
But luckily, I have an accent that isn't that doesn't represent a sort of ethnicity that ICE agents would go after. But I've got more melanin than a lot of folks. I've got curly hair. And yeah, it's something that, I've had many discussions with my fellow Latino friends about what do we do? What do we bring? How do we make sure to protect ourselves? And it's the kind of discussions that I've had with family members, cousins, friends. And it's not the sort of discussions that you would think you would have to have in the United States of America.
If you're the nominee in November, what do you expect Gabe Evans to say about you? What's their campaign against you going to look like?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of anything besides, oh, is this guy too cool? I'm not exactly sure. I'm not exactly sure what Gabe Evans will say. I mean, they try to paint all Democrats in a certain light. They try to pivot to dividing and conquering. That's their strategy. This is what part of the problem with Citizens United is, that it allows billionaires and corporations to come in and flood the airwaves and try to tell voters, hey, the reason why you're having a hard time right now is because of that immigrant or because of that single mom on food stamps. And the reality is, we all know that the only minority group engaging in mass corruption and destroying our democracy are Trump's billionaire buddies. And so they're going to try to divide and conquer. And we're going to keep focusing in on Gabe Evans's horrific records, his record to raise costs, to terrorize our immigrant communities. And I think that will be enough to win back this seat come November.
You've raised a lot of money, I think more than either of your primary opponents combined. Can you tell, maybe not combined, but certainly more than each of them, can you tell us a little bit about your campaign strategy and how you were able to do that so quickly?
Yeah, so we're getting a ton of support. I'm sort of overwhelmed. It's not typical, I think, for the son of a single immigrant mom, working class background, for someone like me to be in this position, to take back one of the most important seats in the country. And I think when folks hear about my story, they want to support, they want to chip in. They know that my work ethic that I've proven throughout my entire life is going to be essential for taking back this seat. Frankly, folks see me everywhere. I've got this state representative who's endorsing me, and she said, sometimes I get uh, in the mail an invitation for a baby shower, and I'm like, I bet Manny's going to be at this. It's about showing up. It's about going all over the district. It's about we have obviously a great strategy on digital to make sure that we're uh, able to reach folks on their phones so that they're able to pitch in to sign up to volunteer and hopefully get them into volunteer efforts. Just recently, we had a petition signature event and over 100 volunteers showed up.
Wow.
I mean, that doesn't happen very often. Y'all have been in politics for a while. And
No, that's tough to recruit that many folks. So you're doing petitioning and caucus, or what's your plan to get on the ballot?
Yeah, we're doing both. We think that we are going to be overwhelming favorites at the caucus. But with a campaign of these resources, all these volunteers who want to be able to participate, we want to be able to give them an opportunity to talk to voters and get their signatures along the way.
I've always said I would do both.
Yeah, it's the only game is the ballot. Get on the ballot. Like whatever route you have to take, the game is over unless you make it there. I have one more question before we let you go. So I'm old and offline, and I have 2 kids, and my attention cannot be on phones all day long. But we understand that you have quite the following on social media. Some of your stuff goes viral. You said you get millions of views. What's the secret? What is it? How do you do better online media for your Democratic friends and colleagues? What's your approach to that sort of stuff?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, I think part of the thing here is that it's not like I took a training on social media. I was raised in these algorithms. I just know what's going to work, what hooks work. We've done a lot of research on our end, but while I'm making a video or while the team is making a video, I can sort of get at what's going to resonate with folks. What's the message right now that folks are looking for? And often too, people want authenticity. Social media, what works on social media is authenticity. And like I said, a lot of times politicians, they talk about affordability or immigration like they just read it in a memo, like some consultants just hand it to them. And I'm talking about it from lived experience. Our most recent video, I think it's probably around 5 million views, posted a few days ago on Instagram and Facebook. And it's, the first image is a side-by-side picture of Trump at a photo shoot at McDonald's. You probably all remember it.
Mm-hmm.
Me, 15 years ago, working at McDonald's that I worked at for more than 2 years, making minimum wage.
Oh, so that wasn't just a publicity stunt then?
No.
It was a long one.
My team isn't that good. We still haven't mastered time travel. But no, I think, and that's what folks are looking for. They're looking for folks who have real lived experience and who can speak to folks directly on that level. And that's what we've been able to do on social media.
Well, if one would like to be one of the 5 million views, where do people go to follow you online, and where can they sign up to get involved in the campaign if they want to?
Yeah, well, if they want to join our 55,000 individual donors, they can go to mannyforcolorado.com. They can also sign up to be one of our 1,000 volunteers on that website as well. And if they want to pay attention to what we're doing on social media or all the events that we're going to, they can follow us at Manny Rutinel on all of their favorite social media platforms.
And we will link all of those platforms, as many as we can find, in our Substack post and in our episode when we post it. But State Representative Manny Rutinel, running for the 8th Congressional District in Colorado, the most important race in Colorado and maybe even in the country. Thank you so much for coming on the Get More Smarter podcast.
Thanks, Ian and Jason. I really appreciate y'all.
You bet.